you ever felt frustrated, overwhelmed, or stuck wasting time in admin instead of growing, leveraging, and scaling your business? Then this podcast is for you. Welcome to Delegate to Elevate, the podcast that's all about handing off what you don't need to do so you can focus on what you do best. So here's your host, Bonnie Schutz.
Hello, everybody, and welcome again to Delegate to Elevate, Get Done. I hope you're all doing well. I thank you for tuning in again today. I have another exciting guest. I always way overuse that word, Angie. So as a marketer, maybe you can help me change the word exciting, because I am always excited about my guests. I'm like, one day I'm going to say a famous guest, I guess. Awesome. So please welcome Angie Viehman. She is a seasoned certified operations expert with over 2 decades of experience working with industry giants such as Target, Crate and Barrel, Room and Board, and Blue Dot. Angie brings a refreshing approach to the business operations landscape, guiding businesses to triple their revenue while abolishing overwhelm and overwork. Her passion lies in empowering women to create sustainable businesses that they love, generating wealth and balance in all aspects of their lives.
Yeah,
I love that. I love that. I love that. Short, sweet, to the point, and welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for being
here.
Very excited to be here.
Oh, awesome. So folks, I met Angie in a group I've mentioned in previous episodes called Second Act Women. And you may have seen the episode with Barbara Brooks, their CEO. Angie, Barb, and I have hung out before, done the girlfriend thing because, we can relate. We are women over a certain age who are alive and thriving. We are unstoppable. And we just clicked, and so I thought she has a similar service to what I have. She's not in an agency model, but I think she can speak a lot to what it's like to delegate to others, and then what it's like to be hired and being delegated to, and what tips and tricks and things have worked and what hasn't. So let's jump in and let you give us your story a little bit deeper. And then maybe you can think of some takeaways that our listeners can have today that help them grow those delegation muscles, or hear how hard it is because of a struggle you've had.
Yeah. I mean, where to begin? I mean, there's been ups, there's been downs, I shouldn't even say downs, but just challenges to exactly what you said. So I mean, my background is I've been in an operations role almost my entire career. So I've worked for large organizations, and one of the things that I learned from them, I hadn't envisioned myself being in a large corporation when I graduated, right? That was not on my vision board, and it was not what I was driving towards, but it's what happened. And it was a lucky little surprise so I started out at Target Corporation, as you said, and one of the things that I learned right off the bat in my career was how to do things well, like how to do your job well, because they had all the resources that you needed in order to do that. And I worked for Target, where they were a corporation that valued that efficiency. They valued automation. They valued you being in a position to be able to do the best job that you could do. So they weren't resource scarce. It was all there. And so what was awesome is, although, that wasn't a fit for me long term, I didn't thrive in that kind of corporate culture. What was awesome is I was able to take those same principles and apply them in these smaller organizations, these smaller, very rapidly growing businesses. And because they all need the same thing, but they don't have the resources, they don't, or they don't even know that they need them, right? Like we're all in that, when we're starting out, we're all in that place of like, oh my gosh, I'm just trying to get it done. Like there's so many things. And so it's awesome to be able to take a step back in all of those environments, no matter how chaotic, and say, I get it. And like, how do we simplify this? How do we take you out of that crazy making place and that constant spiral of putting out fires and just honestly not having the same the same passion or excitement that you went into your business with, right? Because now all of a sudden it looks ugly and gross and grimy, right? Because there's all of these things you didn't imagine. So how do we get you back to that place where you still are excited about this idea that you had? This idea is still something that the world needs. And, you know, how do you live in that space every day?
Oh, that's amazing. You're hired. I've done a couple pivots, or as I mentioned in another episode, when I gave Barbara and Lupe the word swivel as I swivel my chair right now. That was before Chat GPT, and I was going to like thesaurus.com. I was like, I'm tired of hearing the word pivot. Let's swivel. But swivel actually makes a lot of sense for me right now, because I have been swiveling my business since I started it from 8 years ago. It started as one thing, grew into another thing. Now I'm doing a darn podcast. Like, who the hell ever thought I'd do a podcast? If you know me, you know me. Like, what? And if I'm honest, it's because I like to talk, and somebody recognized that. And they're like, you need to do a podcast. I'm like, okay. But yeah, the whole aim here is to, and this is another overused word, so happy to get a new one from you, is to normalize the overwhelm that people feel and the fears they feel of delegating, investing money and time and everything that goes into that feeling. Like, give me an example of maybe like somebody when you're getting started with them, what you gauge or what you get in common with a lot of clients. Like how do they act when you first jump in?
I mean, I think the biggest thing, and I don't know that I've ever mastered being able to express this, because I think, you know, you don't know until you know. But I think one of the things that I see over and over and over again with the people that we work with is that building that delegation muscle takes a lot more time than they think. And and the ability, so, you know, I think with a lot of the people that we work with, you know, we've got a plan. We know what needs to happen when we go into that business, but where we hit some blocks, and they're understandable blocks. I want to normalize that this is hard and painful, is that they're not willing to let go of it. So they recognize that they want this, but and maybe that's actually not even fair to say that it's not, that they're not willing, but it's just that they haven't exercised that muscle enough. And it does take a lot of time. And so I think one of the things that is really important is not about, you know, necessarily giving your team grace, but giving yourself grace, that this is something that takes a lot of emotional energy to do and to switch. And
that blind trust, that trust
totally.
And that faith to give your baby, your business in somebody else's hand.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's maybe where it gets scary for people, is it doesn't have to be an all or nothing kind of thing.
Right.
And I think that people think that just because they've hired somebody and they're delegating, that all of a sudden it all has to be done by them. And I think it's fair to build trust with folks. And I also think when you take a step back, where I've seen, and I'm sure you see this in the VA world a lot, is that delegating is different than just giving somebody a task and expecting it to get done, right? Like true delegation is about being super clear on what you want the outcome to be, being super clear about how this impacts the entire business, and really giving that person like a solid handoff to take full ownership of this thing, and then holding them accountable, right? So it's not about just, here's this thing, knock yourself out. Like, you actually have to put some thought and some intention into your delegation in order for it to work. Because otherwise, you're just going to prove yourself right, that nobody else can do this like I can.
Better than me.
And you're also going to end up managing them. Like, you're going to spend way more time managing them if you don't do that really beautiful full handoff. And then again, you're going to prove yourself wrong. I could have just done this faster myself. Like, of course you could have. So
yeah, but how many arms do you have and how much time in a day do you have, right?
Totally. Yeah. So I think it's a real, I think we talk about delegation as a skill, but I think in a lot of the conversations that I hear, it's the skill kind of, the talk about the skill kind of stops at your ability to do it and not about your ability to do it well.
Right. Because well takes time, like trust.
Yeah.
Doing it well, it's building that delegation arm. It's building it. You're not expected to just be an expert at it. I wasn't.
Right.
And I had been delegated to for 30 years.
Yeah.
And delegating was like a whole different story for me. So I get what your customers and my customers go through. And that's another reason I started this podcast, is to bring people on who can empathize, because trust is difficult. And when it's your baby, your business, but that's when I just say, before you take the leap, have that time, have the budget, and have the attitude, your mindset ready to devote to clarity, like you said, right? So I had an older episode that had 7 C's and of the best, delegation model of 7 C's. And one of them is clarity, communication, clarity. I can never think of all 7 of them off the bat like that, but I need to write them down and put them somewhere in front of me. But those 2 always seem to hit the top of everybody's list. And it's like, what we tell our team is communicate, but over communicate and don't worry about it. Don't say, but I'm going to bother them, but if you need clarity, get it before you just do something. Or, if you're further along with this person, you kind of them, give it a shot, but then go back to them and say, hey, I gave it a shot. What do you think? Still give them an opportunity as the delegatee to go in there and get feedback. That's the little bonus that's not a C after the 7 C's is the feedback. Get feedback on your performance. Do you have any examples of resisting clients other than letting things go to you? Like, have you just gotten in there and just found that it just wasn't going to work? They're just not going to meet, what you want to give them, and they're just not going to do it.
I mean, I think every situation is kind of that way, that there's a level of just not able to do it. But I think one of the things is, and maybe this is just a valuable human trait, is, if you are willing to do the work, if you're open to doing the work, and not a person, if I guess I didn't, I'm not a psychologist, but I guess there's, an element of turning it around on other people. And I think, we as leaders, it's kind of our job in a lot of ways to get curious about things.
Yeah. Another C.
Yeah. Get curious with our team, but also get curious with ourselves. Gosh, this delegation thing doesn't seem to work.
Look inward. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've tried it with a handful of people, and I kind of end up in the same place. Boy, I wonder if there's something that I could do, that I could shift. And that's not to blame, I'm going to go back and remind us all that this all started from a place of compassion and empathy. Right. But that doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. It's just, I don't want you to turn it around and blame yourself for it. But, there are things that we can do to adjust. And maybe it's just that openness. Where we think we're giving it over, we think we've done it, but are we really doing that? Or have we kind of inserted ourselves in a different way, and are still blocking that progress?
I've found myself, admittedly, even with what I do, being a roadblock. I'm good at having my team support our clients, but oftentimes I don't take the support myself. I have taken steps toward getting better at that. And as I get the little sweet nuggets from my guests on this podcast, thanks for your free coaching, everybody. It helps so much to just have people that you can talk to, or people like this podcast that you can listen to who are right there with you. So speaking of which, so you are primarily like a fractional COO in that, and you're not an agency model. So as a solopreneur, offering this service, do you ever subcontract parts of it out, or do you have teams within somebody's company that you work with that you delegate to?
Yeah, both. So
Okay.
I've got folks on my team that are usually specialized. So I don't
Hmm.
have generalists, a lot of
Okay.
generalists that I work with, but I do have some folks that are, very specific about what they do that can jump in and help on some things.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, ultimately my goal is to build a team, or to structure a team or support a team that
Yeah.
can help these businesses run on their own. So, it's not supposed to be about me being that person that's, kind of delegating things and making sure that everything's getting done. But it
Right.
is really about creating the structure for that to happen outside of me
Yeah.
and the owners. And so, yeah, so I work really closely with a lot of the internal teams for the
Hmm.
organizations that I work with.
Okay. Do you
Yeah.
get resistance as a fractional from the
Mm.
internal, like employees or internal teams?
Gosh, yeah, that's
I
a
just
great
always wondered.
question. Yeah, I mean, I think in some ways it can be so. Yes and no. Like, I think a
Okay.
lot of people are generally in a place, the owners and the team are usually when they're to the point where they're bringing somebody like me in, they're to the point where they're all kind of frustrated.
I was just going to
Like,
say they're just so grateful.
totally, that they're like, oh my gosh, yeah, that would totally be way easier. But, going back to that curious thing, one of the things that I do to get buy-in from the teams is to ask them. I've certainly got ideas for how to make things better, but they're the ones that are actually doing it. So
Yeah.
it's not the type of situation, we're not the kind of consultants that come in and are like, this is what's going to happen.
Change
This is
this,
what you're going
change
to do.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Like corporate.
really totally. Yeah. I mean, it's really a collaborative process. And so, if they're, sometimes I think the most challenging thing is to get them to think like life could be better.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I
Like,
love
I mean,
that.
you can ask people, like, what do you think should be different about this? Or what kind of things are you running into? And I think a lot of people, owners themselves, are just like, well, this is just the way it has to be. So I think the biggest
Yeah.
resistance we get, and maybe it's more of a challenge than resistance,
Yeah.
is just getting them to like imagine a better scenario. Like, what's your
Better
ideal
situation.
situation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it their desire to have more time in their own day to spend with their children or go on
Mm-hmm.
vacation or whatnot? And that's, something that I'm thriving for right now with delegating to my team. So I find that's pretty common, especially when we're like these second act women here who are trying to learn to pivot out of maybe a corporate career like you and I had into something like this where we do have a bit more freedom because we know how to delegate and our businesses can run smoothly without us.
Yeah.
Although you have told me that you are the person, the fractional COO. So, are you able to step away at all ever?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm getting better at it. It is a
Yeah.
little tricky. I mean, I think that's something that all of us struggle with. And yeah, I mean, I am to the point where I'm starting to look to bring on some long-term
Good.
permanent people onto my team.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know that yeah, I mean, I think though that I have a really good balance. I mean, there
Good.
is, yeah, there are definitely times where I'm like stressed packing and leaving for a vacation, but
Yeah.
also like, I'm and packing and like getting everything settled with my clients and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's definitely, but I'm still getting to go on vacation. Like, I'm still getting to do
Okay.
these things.
That's
I'm
good.
gonna, I'm heading out, and as soon as we're done here, to go pick up my stepdaughter from school. And
Uh-huh.
so, I feel very involved with my
Good.
family and with my life,
Nice.
but it doesn't feel like I'm just lounging around
Yeah.
waiting to go and do those things, and there's
Right.
a lot of work that goes into
I'm
it,
not
but
like, maybe I'll work an hour today.
totally. Yeah.
No, we still have passion in us to work. I still have my old school mindset of sitting at my desk, Monday through Friday, but just the ability to delegate what I need to in order to step away for a little bit is always a wonderful feeling. And I hope that that resonates a lot with people too, that's the main goal. Right. That's just whether it's naps or traveling, whatever you need in your stage of your business, your professional service business is where building your delegation muscle needs to match. So me, I'm a worker. I need to do something during the day, but I do need to be able to take those vacations now and then or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm an empty nester. Don't have any kids to pick up. But yeah, there's so many varying levels. But yeah, I think it's a very smart decision that you've made to hop out of corporate. I'm a little biased because I did the same thing.
Yeah.
And into doing something that you wanted to do and you knew you were good at. And I love the similarities in that we both know we took the little golden nuggets with our corporate mindsets and am able to like, oh my gosh, I did that in corporate. Yeah. I can do this now on my own. I used to see my boss do this, but it's all about that, just learn from life. There's lessons learned in delegation and there's lessons learned as a fractional person, as an agency owner, and anybody in any kind of professional service that helps propel their business. And if you were to give a couple of the tips, tricks or something to make things, if you are, say I'm a bookkeeper and I'm selling my bookkeeping services and I just getting started and I just, I'm starting to learn how to onboard clients, what might I say to make them feel comfortable and make reasonable requests or something like that from them as I'm getting started?
In terms of, so a bookkeeper working with or somebody working with
as if
clients.
I'm the bookkeeper and I'm like onboarding a new client, how can I make that go smooth and gain their trust to a certain degree, in what I'm about to do for them? If that's an easy enough question to answer.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think the biggest thing in all of this is just communicating I think, a lot of the panic, whether it's customers, whether it's team, whether it's, bosses, whatever, I think a lot of the panic that comes in or a lot of the late night emails or the late night phone calls or anything like that are just from a lack of communication and nobody's fault, right? But again, it's like taking that moment to sit down at the very beginning and get really clear on what this is going to look like and sharing that with other people because if people know what the next step is, if people know what's going to happen, they're not going to ask you. But, they've made an investment in you and, it's meaningful to them and probably is pushing them, in some uncomfortable ways. And, so people are going to have these moments where like, oh my gosh, am I getting what I paid for? Oh my gosh, am I like whatever it is, right? They're going to have these little flickers of panic themselves, and that's going to turn around right back on you. And so
I've got to write down flickers of panic. I like that because I might identify with that.
Yeah. I mean, we all can, right? Yeah.
Right. It's part of the journey, everybody. It really is. Right. And you will get better at it. And I love that idea of just, that maybe I was going in the right direction with my 7 C's and communication being the first one. And it too, like delegation, communication in and of itself is an art. Because I've also often said I should have become a communications major because that's what I feel like I'm telling people all day. You maybe should have delivered it this way. It's all in the delivery, folks. But I think what I would take from what you said and what I've learned from you is clearly like if you're like onboarding a client, like we were talking theoretically, you ask those questions of what they need. You get real good clarity on your scope of work, when they want it, what they want, how they want it, what their communication love language is what I call it is, how to get them fast, how to just get them information. Ask all these questions outside the box. And even if you're a few months in, give yourself grace that you forgot to ask a certain question and say, I know you told me this 3 months ago, but I've forgotten. I didn't record it well. I made a mistake. We're only human. But we are here to help and enhance. So just over communicate if you have to. Totally. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, totally. And I think the other piece of that, or maybe a deeper level of that, is just that when you do communicate all of that, when you think through that, communicate it all, that allows you to go. It creates space, at least for me. I'm a huge automation person for this reason, that if you can clear off all of that stuff from your plate, having to remember certain things instead of, or versus documenting it all in terms of step 1, step 2, step 3, you put yourself in a place to think beyond the tasks of this is what has to happen. This is what we need to do. And then you start providing a better customer experience. So your clients, you start to think about all of these fun extra things that you can do for, I know we're not trying to do more necessarily, but like you can think about like, oh, you know what? I know that we talked about doing this, but it would actually be really, really cool if we did, if we elevated it a little bit more. But if you're just in like survival mode, you're not thinking about those extra things. You're just like, this is what I have on my list today. This is what I got to get done. And so I feel like when you can streamline all of that stuff for yourself and for your team, it creates this really amazing energy between you and your team, between you and your clients, where like everybody feels like, oh my gosh, we're not just doing a job. Like we're doing this
thing. We're doing this thing.
It's we're creating something really awesome.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And that's what we're all about. We're all about providing services that create awesomeness. Oh my goodness. I just think this is perfect. So, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being with me here today. I will share all your information below in the comments, and we'll get you up and out of there to the world soon. And if anything that Angie has talked about today or has shared with you and you're interested in some services, contact her. Tell them Body sent you. Tell them Delegate to Elevate sent you. And she'd be wonderful to work with because she's just a great human being altogether. And I highly recommend her services. And you never know, maybe that you're hired really meant you're hired. No, you never know where my mind just pivoted. But thank you so much, Angie.
Yeah, thank you, Bonnie. This was an amazing conversation.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and the podcast is incredible, making the world a better place.
Thank you so much. And I hope y'all will like, share, comment, tell your neighbor, listen on the way to work, listen while you're working those working out muscles instead of the delegation muscles, and leave us a review. Let us know. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
So that's it for today's episode of Delegate to Elevate. Head on over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen and subscribe to the show. One lucky listener every single week that posts a review on Apple Podcasts or iTunes will win a chance in the grand prize drawing to win a $15,000 private VIP day with Bonnie herself. Be sure to head on over to delegatetoelevatepodcast.com. That's with the number 2. And pick up a free copy of Bonnie's gift and join us on the next episode.